On the continent of Kunark, in the Field of Bone not far from the Ixar capital of Kabalis, there stands a great tower. Anyone who has ever played in Ixar knows this place well. While you level in the Field of Bone, it looms above you, just begging to be explored. As soon as you hit the appropriate level, this is the best place to go to get experience. You've probably spent hours killing Ixar skeletons before moving to the basement to kill oversized badgers. But have you ever wondered why this tower is here? Why it's filled with undead, or why the basement is filled with angry badgers? Well, this is the story of what Kurn's tower is and how it came to be the way it is. To understand the story of Kurn's tower, we must first take a look at the rulers who brought Kunark from a collection of warring tribes to its peak as a continent-dominating empire, the Sathir Dynasty. Around 1400 years before the era of EverQuest, the time of the Sathir Dynasty and the Sablician Empire began. As a young Ixar, Veneral Sathir was a member of the Kunzar tribe, one of 5 tribes that were divided and fighting over control of the continent of Kunark. As a youth, Veneral was said to have been a master of weaponry and martial combat, and it was not long before he would kill his own father and take over as chief of the Kunzar tribe. Veneral Sathir had a mind for more than simple combat, however, and it was around this time that while exploring the ancient library of Kotiz, he stumbled across the Unholy Writ of War, a necromancy text left over from the great Shisar Empire that had once ruled Kunark. Veneral Sathir would master necromancy, and not being content to lead a single tribe, he used his mastery of tactics and the dark arts to conquer all of Kunark, bringing the other 4 tribes under his ruthless control. Emperor Sathir and his beloved Drusilla had a child who they named Ryle. Now that his quest to become emperor of all was complete, he turned his eyes to a new obsession. He wanted to rule forever with Drusilla at his side. He delved into the dark arts of necromancy, desperate to find a way to make himself and his mate immortal. After Drusilla died unexpectedly, his obsession took over his every waking moment. He was driven mad with the desire to bring his beloved back to life and rule Kunark forever together with her. His son Ryle began to grow concerned and saw this obsession as heresy. During one of Veneral Sathir's dark rituals, Ryle confronted and killed him. He destroyed his body, ridding Kunark of his evil forever. Or so he thought. But that's another story. Ryle took over as emperor, and by all accounts he was even more ruthless than his father. As emperor, he, along with his trusted generals Kurn and Karakatus, built an elite army, the Crusaders of Green Mist, and with it they brought every inhabitant of Kunark under the brutal rule of the Ixar. To reward his loyal generals, Ryle built 2 towers, one in Warslick's Woods for Karakatus that fell long ago, and one for Kurn that still stands to this day, dominating the skyline of the Field of Bone. Kurn was known across Kunark for his love of torture. The tower gifted to him by his emperor was used to house whatever depravity he could think up, and he put it to terrifying use. The rule of Ryle Sathir was the peak of the power and reach of the Sablician Empire, and at that time none was more feared than Kurn and his Tower of Horrors. Prisoners of war and anyone disloyal to the Empire could be taken to Kurn's tower, where Kurn would personally use his many machines of pain and torture with sadistic pleasure. Kurn might have never thought the roles would ever be reversed, that he would ever have to answer for the acts of depravity that he inflicted on his prisoners, that there might come a day when he would be on the other end of his instruments of torture. Or maybe he didn't care. A true psychopath the likes of Kurn may not have even been capable of fearing the consequences of his actions. But there came a day when one of Kurn's prisoners managed to slip out of his cell. Seeing that every way in and out of the tower was guarded by Kurn's soldiers, the prisoner hid in the basement of the tower, an area that was no longer used on prisoners but had been turned into storage for plunder of war and unused torture devices. The prisoner hid there, and desperate to escape that terrible place, he fashioned a digging tool out of the items in storage and began the slow, painstaking process of tunneling his way out of the tower. After days of digging, while starving, dehydrated, and suffering the injuries of his torment as a prisoner of the tower, the escapee felt an opening. Hope welled in him. Had he at last found a passage out of this cursed place? He squeezed through the opening into a dark cavern. His hope was short-lived, however. Before his eyes could even adjust to the darkness, he was torn apart by claws and teeth. He may have died, but if that prisoner ever hoped for revenge against Kurn, then he would unknowingly bring it about. He had stumbled into the realm of the Buranai, living deep beneath the field of bone. The Buranai, minions of Bral Sorellis and created by the Duke of Underfoot, and given the purpose to dig and find treasure, saw this sudden intrusion into one of their burrows as an invasion by the surface dwellers, intent on stealing their treasure. They flooded into the tower from the basement and quickly overwhelmed the soldiers, killing everyone in their path. Finding Kurn, they captured him and used his machines of suffering on him, slowly torturing him until he died. But the story does not end there, of course. The Buranai remained in the lower levels of the tower, jealously guarding the treasure that was stored there and the entrance to their underground realm. As for Kurn and his men, they remain, cursed to walk the halls of the tower, trapped there for eternity. Why are they still there? No one knows. But Kurn's tower was the site of such suffering and death that it makes sense that it would be cursed in such a way. In the world of Norath, such evil tends not to go unpunished. But perhaps there's more to it than simple karma. Ever since Venerable Sathir found the unholy writ of war, necromancy has been interwoven with the Sathir Dynasty. Everything they touch seems to be tainted by it. The continent of Kunark is covered by the undead remnants of the past. Kunark is a continent where evil never seems to truly die. Thanks for watching this lore video. If you have anything to add, please drop it in the comments. I got most of the information for this video from the Lore of Norath archives, but EverQuest lore is scattered around the internet, and there always seems to be bits and pieces just waiting to be found. I'll be back with more of these in the future, so be sure to subscribe so you see them when they come out. Talk to you later.